brothers and sisters.
Feeling lost? Let God guide your steps. A moment with God can change everything. Listen, reflect, and be blessed. Here's today's scripture.
You know, when we think about finding our life's purpose, we often picture it being, well, pretty smooth, right?
Yeah, like all ease and comfort, maybe even, a bit of recognition.
Exactly. Doors just swinging open, everything just sort of flowing. But what if? What if a really profound, maybe even a divine calling actually looks quite different?
Different how?
Well, what if it involves something much more challenging? What if the promise isn't comfort at all, but maybe a deep, transformative struggle?
Okay, that's an interesting thought to start with.
For I will show him how great things he must suffer for my name's sake.
Okay, powerful words. And context is key here, isn't it?
Absolutely critical. This isn't just a random line. This is the Lord speaking directly to Ananias.
Right, about Saul, who we know becomes the Apostle Paul.
Exactly. Saul, who at this point was, let's be honest, a fierce persecutor of the early church.
So this is right at that pivot point, his conversion moment.
It's the absolute turning point. From this zealous oppressor to arguably one of the most influential apostles in history.
And God's first message about his future includes suffering. That's striking.
It really is. So our mission today in this deep dive is to really unpack that, to pull out the crucial insights from just this one sentence.
Insights about what specifically?
Things like, what divine calling really means, the actual cost of discipleship, maybe even finding purpose in suffering.
And God's sovereignty through it all, I imagine.
Exactly that. Think of this as maybe a shortcut to getting really well informed on these big, sometimes difficult, but ultimately, I think, really rewarding themes.
Sounds good. It's fascinating, isn't it, how this single verse just immediately kind of shatters that popular idea that a divine call means an easy path.
Totally shatters it.
It's the Lord himself explicitly laying out Paul's future.
Yeah.
And he's not just predicting suffering might happen.
No, it sounds more definite than that.
He's presenting it as, an inherent part of the mission, a necessary part. Paul was chosen, right, to carry the gospel to Gentiles, kings, the people of Israel. And that specific calling, God says right here, would involve profound suffering. It basically defines the nature of his apostleship right from the get-go.
It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? It's not just suffering happening to Paul, like bad luck.
No.
It's explicitly part of God's direct instruction. I will show him, it's active, how great things he must suffer. That word must is doing a lot of work there.
It really is. It implies necessity.
And importantly, it's not framed as, say, a punishment for his past actions as Saul.
Right. Not punitive at all.
Instead, it feels like it's integral, foundational even to God's plan for using him to advance the kingdom, which is just so counterintuitive to how we usually think about divine favor or, success in ministry.
It is.
So how do we make sense of this must suffer? How do we understand that without making God seem, arbitrary or even cruel? What's the divine logic, if you will, behind this specific, very difficult path for Paul?
That's the core question, isn't it? And I think the key is understanding that the suffering here isn't punitive. It's purposeful.
Purposeful, okay.
Yeah. And if you know Paul's later writings, this actually echoes really strongly, doesn't it? Thinking particularly about, say, 2 Corinthians 12.
Where he talks about the thorn in the flesh and
Yes.
boasting in weakness.
Exactly. He boasts in his weaknesses so that Christ's power might rest on him. This verse in Acts, it's almost like the prophetic blueprint for that whole principle.
Ah, okay. So the suffering isn't just endured, it actually enables something.
Precisely. It's not suffering for suffering's sake. It's for the glory that's revealed when someone remains faithful through that hardship. It's a paradox, really.
A paradox. How so?
Paul's vulnerability, the things he suffered, they became this incredibly powerful testament, often opening doors that maybe a life of ease would have kept shut.
Can you give an example?
Well, think about his imprisonments, his chains. They didn't silence him, did they?
No, it seemed quite the opposite in some accounts.
Right. They gave him a unique platform. He ended up preaching to Roman guards, even members of Caesar's own household, apparently.
Huh. So what looked like weakness, the imprisonment, actually became a strength for getting the gospel message out there.
That's it. It's about God demonstrating his power through human weakness, not necessarily by removing it.
Okay, that definitely challenges the modern sort of faith equals comfort narrative. And it really underlines the seriousness of Christian commitment. We often think of a calling as this warm, fuzzy feeling of purpose. But here it's presented immediately as a specific assignment, a mission, and it comes with a foretold, pretty significant cost.
Yes. Less about a feeling, more about a divine commission requiring deep commitment.
Is there a danger here? Could listeners maybe misinterpret this? Like, are we supposed to seek out suffering or maybe feel guilty if our own Christian walk isn't full of intense hardship?
That's a really important distinction to make. Good point.
How do we differentiate Paul's unique apostolic calling from, say, the general experience of believers today?
Well, it's true that not every believer is called to the exact same kind or intensity of suffering Paul faced as an apostle, setting foundations.
Okay.
But the verse does establish a foundational truth about discipleship in general. Following Christ often involves enduring trials for his name's sake. Paul's life just became a very vivid, living example of that principle.
He certainly faced a lot. The lists in his letters are intense.
They really are. I mean, think about it in modern terms. Character assassination being canceled, imprisonment, beatings, shipwrecks, constant rejection. The list just goes on.
Yeah.
But the remarkable thing, and this comes through so clearly, is that these sufferings didn't crush his faith. If anything.
They seem to strengthen his resolve.
Exactly. They strengthened his witness. They authenticated his message. People saw his endurance for Christ. But he embraced it as part of the cost of his calling. And the verse implies when it's for my name's sake, it's never pointless. It's never in vain.
Like a diamond formed under pressure, you said.
Yeah.
The trials refined him.
That's a good analogy. It made his testimony, his witness, even more brilliant, more compelling.
Okay, so if this suffering is so central, so purposeful, not punitive, it inevitably leads to the next big question, doesn't it?
Which is?
How does this all fit into the bigger picture of God's plan, God's control? Is it just stuff happening that God uses, or is it more intentional than that, as this verse seems to suggest?
God's sovereignty.
Yeah, this brings us right to that monumental aspect of the verse. It's one thing to say God uses suffering, but what does it mean that God himself declares Paul must suffer? That feels different.
It does feel different. And this verse offers, I think, a really profound insight into God's sovereignty. It's not just God allowing suffering to happen passively.
It feels more active in the verse.
It seems to be God actively orchestrating it, weaving it into a grander, unstoppable plan. Nothing Paul went through, not one beating, not one shipwreck, not one rejection, was outside of God's knowledge or his control.
So every single trial, foreseen and utilized.
Foreseen and utilized, used as a means to glorify God and ultimately to spread the gospel message further and wider.
That really pushes against some modern ideas, doesn't it? Ideas about like self-determination being the ultimate thing or manifesting your own destiny.
It provides a strong counter-narrative, yes. It suggests a very active divine authorship of our life's path, including, perhaps especially, its most difficult stretches.
So how does that land for us today, if we're facing hardship, maybe specifically for our faith?
Well, placing this truth in that broader context can actually offer immense comfort, strangely enough.
Comfort from knowing suffering might be part of the plan. How so?
Because it means that when we face trials for Christ's name, we're not just victims of circumstance, we're actually participating in a divine purpose that's much bigger than our immediate pain or confusion.
So it's not random, it's not meaningless.
Exactly. It suggests it's part of a divine telos, an ultimate end or purpose for our lives. And that understanding can transform how we experience hardship, giving it profound significance.
It really does call us to embrace the path God sets before us, maybe, even when it includes suffering, trusting that he's deeply involved.
Yes, and trusting that our lives, even in hardship, can be used as a powerful testimony to his grace and his power. So, summarizing what we've really unpacked here, first, we've seen pretty clearly that suffering in Paul's life, as foretold here, isn't some kind of punishment.
Right, not punitive.
Instead, it's presented as an integral, even purposeful part of God's plan. Its aim is to advance his kingdom and glorify his name. It's takeaway one.
Okay, got it.
Second, this verse really emphasizes the seriousness of Christian commitment. It makes it plain that real discipleship often involves enduring trials. It's not always easy street.
Paul's life being the prime example.
Exactly. His life was marked by things like imprisonment, beatings, rejection. But remarkably, All that actually strengthened his witness, didn't weaken it.
Yeah, authenticated it, you said.
Right. And finally, the third big thing is how powerfully this verse underscores God's sovereignty.
That nothing is outside his control.
Precisely. It gives us assurance that every trial we might face for him is foreseen and is being actively used by God for a greater purpose. And that perspective can offer deep comfort.
Comfort and maybe a sense of purpose within the struggle itself.
Yes, a sense of participating in a divine plan, not just being tossed about by random events.
So, thinking about all that, what really stands out to you listening right now? How does this understanding that the cost of following a calling might actually involve suffering, not necessarily ease, how does that reshape your own perspective, your personal understanding of, say, devotion or perseverance?
And maybe a final thought to chew on. If suffering can be a deliberate, purposeful part of a divine plan, how might truly grasping that perspective change your approach to the challenges and commitments in your own life?
Yeah.
Just consider how faithfulness in hardship, not avoiding it, but faithfulness within it, might lead to unexpected glory and a powerful testimony. Perhaps not despite the struggle, but maybe, just maybe because of it.
New videos to light your path. Subscribe to Moment for God. Be part of something meaningful. Help us reach more hearts. Like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to turn on